It is Thursday, March the 1st, 2018. Welcome to Woodstock City Council. We'll get right to work tonight. We have quite a few delegations. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Councillor Tate.
Delegation 7C due to family member.
Thank you. Matters arising from the minutes. The minutes of the last meeting plus the 2 revenue fund budget meetings. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on Thursday, February 15th, 2018, and the special budget meetings held on Tuesday, February 20th, 2018, and Thursday, February 22nd, 2018 be adopted.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries unanimous. And our first delegation tonight is Andrew Mirabella from Hempson Consulting regarding the development charges background study. Welcome.
All right. Good evening. Thanks for having me. Again, my name is Andrew Mirabella. I'm a senior consultant at Hempson Consulting Limited. Hempson was retained about a couple months ago to undertake an update to the city's development charges that are currently in place in the current development charge background study and bylaw. The purpose of this meeting today is really just a council information session in order to provide council with a bit of an update as to the study process and what has occurred to date since we have been retained. We are coming today with some preliminary and maximum calculated development charges for consideration, as well as some policy updates that we will bring forward for your attention. At this time, at least today at this meeting, the development charges that are currently that we are being presented are not being adopted, or any recommendation on that point is going to happen at this evening. There will be a subsequent public meeting as well as a bylaw passage at a meeting after that as well. So plenty of time for some comments and questions. So just as an overview of what we're going to be discussing today, just a bit of a study background. We'll look at what the preliminary development forecast is, looking out over the planning horizon to 2027. We'll get into a bit of the historic service levels, which is really the first step of the analysis when we look at calculating development charges as part of the Development Charges Act and one of the regulatory requirements. We'll look at what the capital programs are in terms of what is going to be required from growth-related infrastructure and the projects that are going to be needed to service development over the next 10 years, over the bylaw period. Once we have those key pieces of information, we'll look at what those preliminary draft calculated rates are looking like for the city of Woodstock and compare it to the differences what they are currently now relative to some of the other surrounding jurisdictions as well as within the county and some other areas, other cities around in the jurisdictions of Waterloo and Brantford as well. And then after that, we'll look at some policy considerations and some next steps, just to go over a highlight of what that background and what that those next steps are for passing the bylaw. So just as a bit of a highlight and background, the city passed your DC bylaw 8871 in December 2013, which imposes DCs really for the following services of general government: library, parks and recreation, protection services, both fire and police, transit, public works, and roads and related services. That bylaw expires on September 6, 2018. In order for the city to continue implementing and collecting development charges, the city must pass a new bylaw in order to continue with that process and before that date. So we're in this process now in order to make sure that new bylaw is in place before that time. So just to give a bit of a brief overview, what are development charges? Generally, development charges are fees imposed on development to fund growth-related capital assets. So DCs pay for new infrastructure and facilities to maintain the service levels. DCs can't be used to enhance service levels. The principle is growth pays for growth, so that the financial burden is generally not borne by your existing taxpayers or your ratepayers. Generally, we would like to see that all development is paid for by development charges. So just to give an overview of our study process, it really is a pretty comprehensive exercise and a complex exercise when we do this. Generally, all legislated under the Development Charges Act. We do start off with a development forecast. We look at the anticipated amount, type, and location of development. That must be estimated as the first step before you actually calculate your development charges. For this purpose, we are looking at a development forecast over the planning period to 2027, which is a 10-year planning period. Once we have our development forecast, we are looking at what a calculation of your 10-year historic service level. So we really look at documenting all the capital assets that the city has by service category and determining what that average level historic service level is over the preceding 10-year period of the study. And that looks from the period from 2008 all the way to 2017 for the purpose of this DC calculation. Once we have our historic service level analysis, we then look at what we identify as the growth-related capital needs, so looking at all the growth-related infrastructure required to service development over the next 10 years. When we have our capital costs and our actual growth-related capital program, not all the growth-related project costs can be funded from development charges. There are a series of deductions that have to be made in accordance with the Development Charges Act, which we must consider, and that's generally related to any grants or subsidies. Our required service level discounts, so all services or soft services have to be discounted by 10%. Any replacement or benefit to existing shares, any available development charge funds that we have on hand are generally applied in order to offset the program, and any costs of the project that are post-period benefits, so that service development beyond the 10-year planning period, so beyond 2027, are considered and netted off the program. What we have there is then our cost eligible for DC recovery, and that DC cost is then divided out between your residential sector and your non-residential sector. Generally, your residential sector is charged on a per unit basis, and your non-residential charge is on a square foot or square meter basis. What you see on the box there is a little kind of red one that has your operating and replacement cost analysis, and one of the new regulations of the Act, an asset management plan has to be prepared in the context of your DC bylaw, and part of the study process we'll be looking at an asset management plan just specifically for the costs that are to be funded under this bylaw in accordance with the regulation. So looking at our preliminary development forecast, and this is the kind of the first step that we look at when we calculate DCs. Development charges in this case are applied citywide, and the intention is that the DCs will continue to be applied citywide. Our planning period, as I mentioned, is a 10-year planning period from 2018 to 2027 for all services considered under this bylaw. The population, household, and employment forecast that we do have here do represent an increase over the county's 2014 study of your population, employment, and household study that was undertaken, as well as the last DC study in terms of the 10-year forecast that we have. So we did update the information relative to the recent census information, your building permit, and housing completion and employment data. We did recognize there was an upward tick in that kind of in those recent trends, and we did make adjustments in our forecast associated with that. That being said, when you do see on the next slide, we do kind of definitely continuing that upward trend in terms of new growth that's going to be coming online. In terms of our non-residential forecast, we do include the amount of new space to be constructed over the 10-year period, as the charge is generally related to a charge per square meter of development. We translate the employment forecast into a non-residential space forecast of what DCs are going to be charged on. So looking at the preliminary development forecast, we do have a pretty consistent trajectory of development going forward in terms of your population, your occupied households, and your place of work employment. Your blue line is going to be looking at your census population. Your red line is going to be your place of work employment. And then your occupied household is going to be your green line. And generally, again, consistently with that a bit of an upward tick in terms of development and keeping that trend of development going forward. And I'll show you some of the details on the following slide. So generally looking at population and occupied households, we have our total occupied dwelling units growing to about 20,100 units by the 2027 period. Looking at that, that's about 600 units in terms of apartments, 1,610 units in single and semi units, and your rows and other multiples are 480 units. So a good mix of about 60% of your units that are going to be coming online is still going to be in that single and semi family dwelling unit type. Apartments are going to be generally increasing, and we're going to see more forms of high density type developments coming online. In terms of your census population, we are looking at an increase of about 4,300 people to 45,000 people by 2027. And what you see under the census population increase is our population growth in new units, and that's 6,671. And the population growth in new units is really a specific type of component, which is generally directed what we call in just for the development charge terms. It's the people that are going to be occupying those new units and those new unit growth that are going to be coming online. So just strictly the unit, and that's why it's different from your census population, because it doesn't include any decline in your existing population base. In terms of our non-residential forecast, we are going to be looking at a growth of about 3,400 new employees, and then that 3,400 new employees will grow to about 28,360 employees by 2027, and delineated again between, in terms of a non-residential space forecast, broken out between commercial and population employment and employment line-related employment. So in terms of our service level analysis, our maximum allowable charge, so once we have our kind of our background and our DC development forecast, we look into our service levels. And generally, we look at our service levels, we look at maximum allowable charges for soft service, and that's based on the average service level provided in the preceding 10 years, again from 2008 to 2017. And our service levels are calculated by multiplying your 10-year historic service level by the forecast growth in the 10-year planning period. And that establishes a development charge ceiling. Those DC rates for soft services are generally directly limited by that 10-year historic average. And generally, for the purpose of this study, most of your soft service programs are on the kind of on that DC ceiling limit. So you are funding as much as we can from development charges on the soft service category in places where, in such instances of roads, where the development charge ceiling is much higher. We're not quite there yet, and that's very common in many municipalities. So in terms of the capital programs, the capital costs have all been adjusted in accordance with the DC legislation. Like I mentioned earlier, anytime we have our capital costs, they are deducted in terms of grants and subsidies, replacement and benefit to existing shares, your 10% legislated discount, available DC reserve funds, and your post-period benefit shares. So just to kind of give a bit of an overview of your capital program summary, we do have quite an exhaustive list of capital programs or capital projects that are going to be required to service development over the next 10 years, but this is just a bit of a highlight as to what those are. You have your library expansion in 2022, police station debt recovery over the next 10 years. We have the Southside Pool expansion, as well as the new Twin Pad Arena in 2023, Cowan Fields Recreation Complex debt recovery over the 10-year period, a new wash building and storage building. We are recovering for the household bulk items depot and debt recovery. Several secondary plans included in the forecast, as well as the development charge study itself, and various road construction and widening projects and intersection improvements. So that's just a bit of a high-level overview of some of the projects that we are going to be included in, but certainly when the background study will identify the exact project timing and cost of them. So just to give a bit of a snapshot here, what that total capital program summary is, your gross program equals about $50.2 million. And you'll see here just generally your library services and parks and recreation, as well as your roads, are really kind of the three big ones that stick out in terms of total capital costs. And certainly the parks and recreation one definitely by far the biggest. What I will want to point out here is that the red bar is what's actually the going to be your replacement shares, but it's going to be your purple one that has your DC collections, and that one is really what's important. And your DC collections is really going to be what's actually being funded through the development charge rates. And you see, obviously, proportionately, just looking at it, that our parks and recreation, your roads have the biggest purple bar, and those are going to be related to the more of the costs that are actually going to be funded through DCs over this period. So just as we have a bit of a background and a basis as to what some of those projects are and actually the capital funding requirements, your draft calculated citywide residential DC rates are calculated to be about 8454. Rose multiples are 6703. Your apartments, your bedrooms, about 4560, and your 3787 for your apartments and your one bedroom or smaller. What I will kind of like to impose here is the biggest thing here is really your structure of the charge and the way the weighting is. And what's important is your parks and recreation, as you see, is the purple bar or the purple part of the pie graph there. That is the biggest component of the development charge calculation and the biggest part of that single and semi-detached unit charge. Your roads and related component is the green one, which is the second biggest component, and that kind of correlates to the previous slide where we see that the biggest parts of what's actually being collected from development charges really translates into the actual charge itself. So, you know, this relationship is not all too dissimilar from what we see in other municipalities, and that's also because, you know, generally your engineered services of water and sewer are on a county responsibility level and not included in this pie chart, and this is generally just obviously looking at just the citywide component to it. And when we do kind of mix in those specific instances, that kind of change the nature of the pie chart. But without those two service categories in there, your parks and recreation does comprise a big chunk of the charge, as well as your roads and related services. So looking at their draft calculated citywide non-residential DC rates, we did calculate them consistently with the way you currently have them in place. We have an industrial charge and a non-industrial charge. The total citywide charge per square meter is $12.56 for your industrial rates, and your non-industrial rates are $19.50. And those are distributed, I guess, the various different service categories that a non-residential charge applies. You will notice that obviously the charge for industrial and non-industrial is different, and that's really related to just the roads and related category. We have a different charge in place, and that really relates to the travel patterns that those two different specific industries would place on the roads. So we have differentiated the charge, and that approach is really consistent with other municipalities and what we see. So in terms of what the current versus calculated citywide development charge is, your current charge is looking at about $7,331. The draft calculated charge is $84.54, with a difference of about $1,123, representing about a 15% increase in the DC rates. You will notice, and what I'd like to point out is that most categories are going up in terms of the individual service categories are going up in terms of the charge. The roads and related component is one of the bigger increases in terms of the total DC rate, generally related to the more costs that need to be recovered over the 10-year planning period. In terms of your non-industrial rate, so you're really looking at your commercial rate, the current charge is $11.84. In terms of the draft calculated charge of $19.50, we are seeing about a $7.66 increase in terms of the dollar per charge per square meter. Again, the rate increase here is a bit higher than on the residential side, and that's really related to more of the charge being weighted to your roads and related sector, as there is no parks and recreation and library services on the non-residential charge, and they do have a pretty significant component of the actual overall rate. I'm not sure what happened to this slide here. Doesn't look like it's showing up. So I did prepare a comparison table. I'm not sure if it showed up on the package that was circulated to everybody, but in general, the city of Woodstock's rates, in terms of the actual position of it, in terms of a residential rate comparison of a single detached unit, does kind of maintain its existing relationship onto the relative to other municipalities, places like the city of Cambridge and the city of London, as well as other areas in the county of Oxford, are quite higher, and that's also really related to generally the water and sewer servicing requirement of those different areas and those different municipalities, where the city of Woodstock's those charges in specific, those area-specific charges aren't as great. Again, not entirely sure what happened here, but generally the kind of the same story on the non-residential side. It's okay. The non-residential side, the rate per square meter, the city of Woodstock's change in terms of relativity into other municipalities doesn't actually change. It stays in kind of the same type of competitiveness, and generally lower again to some of your peers in other areas in the county of Oxford, as well as some in terms of your city of London or the city of Cambridge. So in terms of just some DC policy considerations, one of the things that we did want to bring up in this informal session here is your non-statutory exemption. So currently the city of Woodstock does exempt development for places of worship, industrial and institutional development, development within the downtown, and affordable housing. At least from the staff report that was brought forward, and some of the intentions here today is to consider whether those current exemptions will maintain in the forthcoming bylaw. Some of the other considerations that will have to be taken into consideration will be the effective date of rates, when the actual rate should go into effect. And I believe it's being proposed that the new rates would go into effect January 1, 2019. And then the consideration for any transition measures in relate to that. So putting the effective date of rates to January 1, 2019 would be somewhat of a transition measure, giving about a 6-month leeway in time for the building industry to kind of accommodate to the new calculated rates. But certainly any other phase-in options and such can be considered and can be brought forward at the time of the public meeting or at the time of the bylaw passage. So in terms of some next steps here, certainly from this meeting here, under the new requirements of the Act, we do have some pretty stringent timelines in terms of the preparation of the background study and releasing them to the public. So we will, looking for some direction here to prepare the background study, and that would be kind of completed over the month of March with the intention of releasing that background study April 2nd to the public. It has to be released 60 days prior to bylaw passage. So we're looking at then advertising for the public meeting shortly after the background study is released, with the statutory public meeting taking place on May 3rd. Then council bylaw passage would be, at least right now, targeted to be June 7th, 2018. So well before the actual September expiry, which is good to give a little bit of a leeway with the summer recesses and such. And I think then at that point you can always, even though the bylaw may be passed on June 7th, the implementation date of the rates can follow after that for January 1. So that concludes my presentation. Be happy to have any comments or questions.
Thank you. Questions of council? Thank you very much, and we will hear from you again.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we have Mary Reed, the curator of the Woodstock Art Gallery, as well as we have Ron Schubrook, chair of the Woodstock Gallery Advisory Board for the 2018 budget presentation. Welcome.
I'm on there somewhere. Is that the right one?
Should be the second one, I believe.
The second one?
Yep. Thank you.
I can't see that far. There we go. Thanks so much, Jim. All right, you start, Ron.
Thank you. Your Worship, Mayor Birch, City Council, members of the audience. My name is Ron Schubrook. I'm the new chair of the Woodstock Art Galleries Advisory Board, along with Mary Reed. Dear Mary, Director Curator, we'll be presenting to you the gallery's 2017 operations year in review and the WAG's plans moving forward into 2018 and beyond. I'd like to start with acknowledging some changes in the WAG's board membership. In June, Ann Pierce, outgoing president of the Friends of the Woodstock Art Gallery, stepped down from the board as she will be changing her role with the Friends. On behalf of the Woodstock Art Gallery, I'd like to acknowledge and thank her for her service, her passion, dedication towards the promotion, and the importance of the visual arts in daily life was appreciated as much by all of us on the board as she shared it with her enthusiasm with us. I'm delighted also to welcome Judy Dent, the new president of the Friends of the Woodstock Art Gallery, Lynn Moyer, past chair of the gallery's film committee, and you'll have to help me, Natasha Vijovic, president and CEO of the Woodstock Hospital. Undoubtedly, all these extremely intelligent and capable women bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the gallery's board. As you know, in 2016, we completed the WAG's 5-year strategic and business plans. I'm pleased to say that these plans are not collecting dust, but are in fact referred to often and are very helpful in terms of building and developing the gallery. We've developed a tracking matrix tool that we review quarterly, and in April 2018, we will be dedicating an entire board meeting to do a midpoint realignment of the strategic and business plans with the achieved and future goals of the gallery. The board's fundraising committee has been very productive in 2017. Due to the success of the annual appeal, individual donations have more than doubled, and we met our target for 2017 regarding sponsorships. The fundraising committee was also key in the establishment of the gallery's donor recognition wall. Launched this year is the gallery's annual community report, which lists highlights and milestones for the year, many which Mary will be touching upon this evening. Another initiative was the creation of the Florence Carlisle event calendar, which not only generates revenues in the gift shop, but is also an effective tool in donor stewardship. I find that publication really thrilling to know that somebody as remarkable as Florence Carlisle lived in this wonderful community. I'll now turn over this presentation to Mary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. So, as mentioned, 2017 was a very successful year for the gallery, and this is certainly is evident in the highlights I'll share with you this evening. Before I go into the gallery's main areas of operation, I really want to thank my team. We have worked tirelessly over the last year, and the proof is really in the results. I'm very privileged to work with an extraordinary group of people, and this includes Stephanie Porter, our Head of Education, Roberta Grosslin, our Head of Collections, Sarah Cuthbert, our Visitor Services Coordinator, Erin Beecroft, our Communications and Facilities Rental Coordinator, Deanna Logan, our Education Assistant, Ron Milton, our Printmaking Technician, and Samantha Purvis-Johnson, who is our Curatorial Intern. In many ways, it's quite a marvel what we've been able to accomplish with such a small and dedicated yet talented team, and we really are very truly passionate about what we do and why we do it. So starting with one of the City of Woodstock's most important community resources is really the permanent collection, for which the gallery is its steward. In 2017, we were able to add 96 works to the collection. Of those, 5 were purchased with the funds provided by the City of Woodstock, and these pieces include several Inuit works, along with a precious floral study that was done by one of Florence Carlisle's students, Eva Bradshaw. The bulk of the donations came from collectors and artists, for which we made 3 applications to the Canadian Cultural Property Review Board, and I've had several of the pieces in the gallery's collection designated as outstanding, significant, and national importance to Canada, and this is a significant achievement for the gallery. As the stewards of the permanent collection, it is our role not only to acquire and to exhibit, but to conserve and care for this collection for future generations. In 2017, 2 items in the collection underwent conservation, and approximately 100 works were professionally photographed, enabling greater dissemination and promotion of this important resource. One of our curatorial interns also undertook an extensive audit of our collection, particularly our print collection, and helped us identify gaps and areas of concentration, providing direction for future strategic growth of this area. In September of 2017, I'm delighted to say that we brought on a new permanent collections database. This was installed with funding provided by the Elizabeth L. Gordon Art Program through the Ontario Arts Foundation. This new database will greatly increase future accessibility and visibility of this important resource through a significant online presence, and currently we have about 250 works that are available and accessible online. Research and promotion are also key activities, and in 2017, Roberta Grosslin and Stephanie Porter, along with Jay Heeman from Oxford County, presented on the Art of Sustainable Energy Education Program at the Ontario Museum's annual conference in Kingston. This special education program, which was based off of works found in our permanent collection, came together as part of the environmentally themed exhibition Observations in the Glass House, which was mounted in the Dr. Leonard Reeves Permanent Collection Gallery from February 2016 to January 2017 and was sponsored by Toyota. The presentation that Stephanie and Roberta did was extremely well attended and got promoted and retweeted to several organizations. In 2017, our temporary exhibitions achieved record-breaking attendance, particularly our exhibition featuring the work of Roberta Bondar, Canada's first female astronaut. Out of the 12 exhibitions mounted, we featured 67 local artists, and several exhibitions received support from the Ontario Arts Council, corporate sponsorships such as those that have been provided by our local branches of the Meridian Credit Union and Scotiabank. Continuing on, we had 8 exhibitions that were researched and mounted from the permanent collection. And of note is that we were able to loan key pieces from the National Portrait Gallery and the Canadian War Museum to augment the gallery's collection. And again, this is a real significant accomplishment for the Woodstock Art Gallery to be able to borrow works from these national organizations. And it highlights that Woodstock Art Gallery is truly a Class A facility operating with the highest levels of standards and professionalism. We also undertook several significant community partnerships with the Thames Valley District School Board, Good Beginnings, the Canadian Mental Health Association, and probably the most poignant one was the Suicide Prevention Oxford Leadership Coalition. In terms of education, this was truly a banner year for our education department with 2 new and major initiatives. In May of 2017, we marked our inaugural Youthquake Young Artist Showcase. This was a multidisciplinary event that featured emerging artists in partnership with Thames Valley School Board, Deafblind Ontario, the Youth Film Festival that's organized through the Oxford Drug Awareness Committee, through Oxford County Public Health. Last year, Youthquake was sponsored by DJ Design, and they have come again on board again this year. And I'm also very pleased to announce that we have recently received funding from the Community Futures Oxford for this special program as well. In October of 2017, we saw the launch of Imprinting Generations, and this program was funded through the Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors program. This saw the establishment of an environmentally friendly print studio, along with the development of an intergenerational workshop program. And the program itself has been wildly successful, pairing teens with seniors through the magic and discovery of printmaking. And I'm very thankful to the Oxford Community Foundation for supporting the continuation of this program into 2018. One of our most significant community partnerships was with the Public Health Nurses of Oxford County, and this was a brainchild of our Head of Education, Stephanie Porter, to create a body image education program that was geared specifically at grade 5-6 students, and it was across the county, and it paired art making with the understanding of issues around body image. This was a very important program and made a lasting impact on many young students in regards to confidence building and the prevention of bullying. In terms of our public programs, we've certainly increased, but you can see from our numbers, both in our school programs as well as in our public programs, that we've pretty much reached capacity. And as indicated by these numbers, this revenue stream is ripe with potential, but the WAG cannot keep up with the demand. As such, in the additions for base budget requests, I'm asking that our part-time position of education assistant become full-time to take advantage of this demand and further increase this revenue stream. Future opportunities that can be explored with this increase in human resources is not only expanding upon the additional programs that we have in place, but it's also creating new initiatives such as corporate team building workshops. And this means that this revenue stream can grow in 2 directions. One, the revenue drawn from participants through registration fees, and the other one through naming sponsorship opportunities. Certainly our most popular public program is the See You at the Movies program, and these films are drawn directly from the Toronto International Film Festival. And although the attendance and revenue are growing for this program, it is really run on a cost recovery basis. And where the potential lies for revenue generation is in sponsorship. Already in 2018, we've seen quite a bit of positive activity in this direction, with films being sponsored by Fanshawe College, the Friends of the Woodstock Art Gallery, and the Oxford Pride Committee. The Woodstock Art Gallery is extremely fortunate to have a number of active and dedicated community partners. I'm not going to read the list that you see here. Many of them I've already mentioned. But I would like to take the opportunity to thank our community partners. Their contribution and participation in the activities of the Art Gallery not only strengthen and build upon our core functions, which we provide in service to our community. 2017 also marked an impressive level of support, which we received from many local businesses and donors. As mentioned last year, we garnered a significant increase in donations, both financially and in kind. And again, I'd like to take the opportunity to personally thank our community corporate donors for their most generous support. These contributions assist the gallery in delivering the level and standard of programming that Woodstock deserves. Another means to diversify our revenue stream is obviously through special events and programming. As it was the conclusion of the 50th anniversary in April 2017, we had a wonderful celebration that was also funded by Toyota Manufacturing and was attended by our newly appointed Senator, Patricia Bovey, and you may remember that she assisted us in the development of our strategic and business plans, and in fact, the Woodstock Art Gallery was her last client before her Senate appointment. We also had our 3rd annual Taste of Art event, which again raised $18,000 in both in-kind and financial support. And as I've mentioned in the past, the goal of these events are not only to raise funds for the gallery's operation, but also to attract new audiences, to create new ways that people can understand how the Woodstock Art Gallery has multiple ways that we can experience the institution. For 2018, we're looking at enhancing the taste of art by combining it with our annual 50/50 exhibition and sale and creating more opportunities for local artists to sell their works and gain private collectors. In terms of audience, as much as I wanted to see this number hit over 30,000, we were just shy of it. And when on average, we're seeing about 85 to 100 people per day. And I'm very confident with the programming that we have in place for 2018 that we will exceed that $30,000 mark. Obviously, with the increase of popularity, we've had an increase in our membership. This year, we've increased by 13%. And now we're also part of the wonderful world of legend, and I really want to thank Patrick King, the aquatic supervisor, for onboarding this new POS system with my team at the gallery. Being fully integrated with the city, we have reaped the benefits of online registrations and payments with an uptick in participants and consequently revenues. And as such, this increased activity supports the need for extending the part-time education assistant position to full-time. We're also very fortunate to have an excellent volunteer base of about 120 active volunteers, and collectively they contribute the human resource labor exceeding that of one full-time employee. And in 2017, our valuable volunteers assisted us with a multitude of activities such as events, tours of the art gallery, organizing our art reference library, facilitating our film program, and preparing mailings. And along with the Friends of the Woodstock Art Gallery, our volunteers are very important ambassadors to the gallery, and we've now implemented an annual volunteer recognition event. In November 2017, we celebrated the contribution of the following dedicated star volunteers. These include our docents, Martha Gindrich, Margaret Trapnell, and Gathy Grew, our past chair of our film committee, Lynn Moyer, who is now a new board member, and local artist Mercedes Schuster, who helps us a great deal at the front desk and also in the education department. Our social media platforms have experienced a significant increase in 2017, and with the realignment of the art gallery attendant position to now that of the communications and facility rentals coordinator, we're starting to see our Facebook posts reach well beyond what we've been able to do before. So our largest post this year was actually reached over 5,000 likes and featured our Teen Graffiti Summer Camp Workshop, which was sponsored by Easy Way. And since Aaron Beecroft has joined the team in July, we've been able to add Instagram and Pinterest to our social media complement and are continuing to grow these platforms through many behind-the-scenes and personalized posts. Traditional mediums are also providing a very effective platform in communicating within our community. As many of you know, I write a monthly column for the Sentinel Review, and the paper has regularly covered our activities. Heart FM has been a tremendous supporter in terms of helping us get the word out there. And in 2017, we started advertising on our transit buses. And again, we're reaping the benefits of this type of exposure. And in addition, we're also supporting another city department. And we've also created some very strong linkages with the museum, theater, and aquatics and recreation department in sharing our resources to jointly advertise events such as Family Day and our summer camps. We had hoped to have our communications and facility rental coordinator start a little bit earlier in 2017, but unfortunately we weren't able to secure that position until July. As such, we were only able to achieve less than half of our targeted revenue for last year. But with this position fully instated, I'm confident that we'll make our revenue target for 2018. To assist this, we are working on creating a comprehensive promotional package for facility rentals, and this will assist us in growing that revenue line. At the present, we've already had 2 facility rentals, and there's been significant interest in the coming months. So without question, 2017 was another successful year, and this is reflected not only in the matrix, but in the budget. This was a record year for our youth employment grants from both the province and provincial and federal agencies. As such, we were able to employ and mentor 8 students in 2017 as the future cultural workers of tomorrow. However, the growth is starting to wane because, as I mentioned, we are in capacity in terms of our human resources to deliver programs. The 2018 budget has incorporated a conservative reflection of our growth pattern, and it includes a focus of increasing revenue streams through programs and sponsorship. Yet it needs to be noticed that we've exhausted many of our reserve funds and cannot draw upon these as we have in the years past. I am confident that we will make our 2018 revenue target and ideally exceed it, and certainly growing the education position to full-time will help us achieve this activity. Although the revenue side of the budget is moving in the right direction, unfortunately this is not the case with the cost side of the equation. As you see, the cost of running the building are trending up, And as expected, which is expected, but the program costs are now starting to dip downwards. And this is a troubling consequence, as to grow an organization, the program should be increasing, not contracting. People want to be part of something that is vibrant, exciting, and moving forward, and pulling back on programming to decrease expenditures can be detrimental for the long-term sustainability of any organization. I've already addressed throughout this presentation the need to grow our education assistant position, and I will echo Karen Houston's Manager of Culture's comments regarding our need for a shared custodian. The level of traffic within the gallery continues to increase, and as in such, I'm continually increasing their engagement of our contract cleaners, but this is just not enough to keep the building looking clean and presentable. It is imperative, not only from a health and safety perspective, but also from an image standpoint, that the gallery be cleaned and small repairs done in a timely manner, and as such, this position is also of utmost importance. And I should also mention that both of these positions have been identified as priorities in the gallery's strategic and business plans. Before I leave you, I just want to mention a few of our recent highlights for 2018. Many of you joined us on Family Day, a weekend, for the opening of our winter exhibitions. We attracted over 230 people on the Saturday afternoon for the opportunity to see the agricultural portraits of our local legend, Ross Butler. This exhibition was sponsored by the University of Guelph, Ontario Agricultural College, and Holstein, Canada. And the East Gen has also come on board to sponsor a special creative PA Day in April that is inspired by this exhibition. The Saturday of the holiday was followed by another action-packed holiday Monday, which started off with the Peter Rabbit movie at Gallery Cinemas, and Councillor Shapton was very brave to watch the whole movie with 200 screaming children and parents. But over the course of that holiday weekend, we saw about 600 people walk through the gallery. These are just some of the images from the day. And I have to say that this is probably one of my most favorite days at the gallery, because it's just wonderful to see children and adults and people from all across the city really enjoy what the gallery has to offer. And of course, I've already started waving the flag for our fall exhibition, The Art of the Warner Brothers Cartoon. This again is another special coup for the Woodstock Art Gallery, because this will be the second presentation of this collection in Canada. This exhibition is a fascinating behind-the-scenes look on how these classic cartoons are made through original cells, model sheets, story sketches, animation drawings. We'll really be able to understand the evolution of Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Porky Pig, you name it. And I should mention that to capitalize on the potential tourist draw of this exhibition, I have purposely increased the advertising budget significantly. It is my intention to promote this exhibition much further afield, so reaching out to London, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, and dare I say, even the GTA. And my hope is that I want to bring many people to Woodstock, not only to see the exhibition, but also have lunch, have dinner, to take part in our retail shopping, and driving a much-needed revitalization of this downtown area. And finally, just to conclude this presentation, I'll leave you with a small selection of comments that have been received by the visitors over the last year. Again, keywords such as stunning, treasure, thriving, important, wonderful, exceptional. These continue to be repeated in many of the comments we get in our guest book, suggestion box, Facebook, TripAdvisor page. Before I close, I want to acknowledge the efforts of the Woodstock Art Gallery Board. They've all worked very hard to support me and my team in terms of realizing the potential of the gallery. As such, 2018 promises to be more exciting and more productive, and we really are moving towards a sustainable, achievable, and meaningful purpose and relevance for this important community resource for the citizens of Woodstock. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just more of a comment through to Mary. First of all, obviously appreciate your presentation this evening, but I think it would be hard for me to sit here and not acknowledge your efforts. You continually acknowledge your team, but in 3 years you've really turned this facility around, as you promised you would, and I certainly appreciate that. But I think the bigger part of my comment is more directed to the youth programming that you've started to provide. I know in my household it's been utilized, as you know, and I think you're doing a great job. And I hope that it continues. And just again, a huge congratulations to your team.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, through the mayor to Mary. I just wanted to thank you and your staff for all the dedicated work you do. I know that all of you work long hours, and it has proven to have worked. And I know we have a strong board, and I know that the board wishes to work with you, and just thanks for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Mary, I just want to say great job. I know sometimes it feels like you're working with your hands tied behind your back, and it's noticed the increase. You've made me a fan of the art gallery. I will fully admit I was before getting on council. I'll admit I was never much involved, but you know, Sarah and I love to come to the events, and you do such a wonderful job. And just keep up the great work, you and all your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next delegation, we have Mary Ann Silverthorne, Chair of the Woodstock Police Services Board, joined with the senior officers, which she'll introduce for our 2018 budget presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship, Council, and members of the City staff, as the Mayor has indicated, I'm Mary Ann Silverthorne, and I'm the Chair of the Woodstock Police Services Board, and I'm appointed by the province. Our Vice Chair is Nancy O'Grady, who sends her regrets for this evening. She is also appointed by the province. Mayor Trevor Virch is on our board, as well as Sandra Carnegie, who is appointed by Council, and Councillor Sean Chapton. In addition, this evening we have in the audience Chief William Renton, who you will hear from in just a minute, Deputy Chief Darren Swayze, and Inspector Paul Hess. I just want to publicly thank the administrative team of the Chief, the Deputy, and the Inspector for the hours of work that they put into this budget. And just a little bit about the process. They do a draft, and then the board's budget committee reviews that draft before it comes to our own board for so-called the board approval before it comes to the City Council. So with that, I will turn the meeting over to the Chief.
Thank you. I got it. Well, welcome, or thank you for having us tonight. On behalf of the Woodstock Police Services Board, our executive, Deputy Sweezy, Inspector Hess, Marilyn Pearson, who was going to attend, but I think the weather scared her off, and our newly appointed senior officer, Christy Lampman, who does our HR. I thank them very much, as well as bring greetings on behalf of all the men and women of the Woodstock Police Service. It's my pleasure to present the budget, to review it, and as well to have a good look at all the positive work and results in terms of last year's productivity of the organization over the year. The staffing composition really hasn't changed a whole lot since 2009 when we evolved back from Oxford Community Police. Please don't add those numbers up, it's the wrong slide. As I did it, I put the wrong slide. I'm a real PowerPoint guy. But anyways, we are an authorized strength of 66, which has been consistent since 2009. The board is gracious to allow us to go 2 overstaff to deal with some long-term accommodations. And as well, what we've done as well, built in a part-time constable component. These members only get paid when they work, but they actually help us in a great way to supplement the resources when we're short. Saves on overtime, and it just helps the members in putting a proper resource out. What we do pretty well everything. We do everything that any major police service can do. There are a couple of exceptions, maybe the true response, the tactical responses, the underwater diving, but for the majority, we do pretty well everything that any other service does. We've shown that over the years with some of the major cases, some of the major issues and social orders, events that we've been a part of. You'll see our frontline members out patrolling. You'll see our traffic unit out. We've got a new traffic car with a new license plate reader system we acquired through a grant. It can sit and scan thousands of license plates in minutes. It'll tell you if the stolen drivers are under suspension. That's a new piece of kit that we're deploying now. We do have our own communication center, which in my mind is huge. We're a primary PSAP primary dispatch center with the 911. We dispatch for the fire companies, all the fire companies in the county, as well as our police. We do our own containment teams. If you have a major event, our containment teams can go secure the area while we negotiate and deal with the issues. If it goes to a heavy weapon, then we'll call in a true team. On another level, we do our own drugs and intelligence work. We do a very good job in the city on drug work. As you know, the opioid crisis is as live here as it is anywhere else. We've had incidences where we're getting the fentanyl, the car fentanyls, and we're working very hard on those. We work with the ODAC, we work with the opioid crisis committee that's been struck with the county. So we're working on all those fronts. Our criminal investigation branch is second to none. We've been faced with some of the largest cases in the country, and we handle them quite well in unison with some of our policing partners, the OPP and London Police and whatnot. We've really developed over the last couple of years a child exploitation unit, child pornography. You'll see some of the numbers. Our numbers are a little bit down this year, although we've incorporated as well the human trafficking event because we are not immune to it. We're getting a lot of it up on the top end of the city by the 401. We've had quite a few projects already. We've rescued a couple young girls out of that trade, so I think that makes it worth it, and we're going to continue putting a lot of efforts to that. We can deal with our own training, our armament, our property management. You know our community services are excellent. You'll see Nikki out in the community, Tyler in the high schools, and we just continue to work on those fronts. I think there we go. And what we do a lot of the stuff. As I mentioned, we do a lot of the community work. We have an auxiliary unit that's 18 members strong. They deploy independently. They look after most of the events in the city, and without them, we wouldn't be able to allow the enforcement initiatives for a lot of the events. Last year, they attended to 56 events or 77 event days, and contributed collectively over 3,561 hours. So it's incredible volunteer hours on their behalf. Calls for service, quickly, we are up about 1,400 calls for service this year. I mean, the city is growing, it's busier, more people are coming, engaging in the community, whether they're in for the business or residential or the entertainment. So our calls are definitely up in that regard. I'll touch on a few areas in a couple slides as to some of the reasons as some specific instances where the calls are really up. Our activities for 2017, crimes for violence, they're down, thankfully, by about 30%, despite the fact that we did have another homicide, and despite the fact that we had to resolve and finish off the wet loafer incident, which skews our numbers on the crime stats. Property crimes were down 5%. Child exploitation, as I mentioned, we did 10 the year prior. We only were able to do 4 that year. But like I say, we've incorporated the human trafficking, and unfortunately, we haven't started to count those numbers into these numbers. Next year, we'll be combining that unit together, and it'll really be more reflective of what they're actually doing there. We've also enhanced that unit with part-time special constable. We're refurbing an FTE to do more of the electronic crime analysis. As you know, most crimes nowadays have an electronic crime component of some nature, whether it's an iPhone, iPad, computer, or other items of that nature. Other reported crimes are the things like the bail violations. You'll see failed to attend breach court. We have a very proactive initiative to enforce compliance. We're very stringent on checking on individuals that are out on release or on parole that have conditions. If they have to be in the home on a curfew by 12 o'clock, well, we'll be there 12:01 to knock on the door to make sure that they're there. And I mean, we have to let these people know that we're there and that the rules of those releases are to be enforced. The drug unit, again, the numbers are down a little bit, but they had a busy year. The investigations are more complex. As we're dealing with the fentanyl and the car fentanyls, it's a much more complex type of investigation. It's quickly consumed. It's not like the old investigations where we could do a street sweep and get a bunch of people with marijuana. This car fentanyl is hard to get. It's hard to detect. We've done a few multi-jurisdictionals, but we were in the international news for the national news with Mr. Patel. I mean, it's the largest seizure to date. It was over $1 million in drugs that he was dealing, and it's probably the most severe sentence at this point of 11 years. So we're making progress there. Criminal driving, it's down a bit. I'm really hoping people are just getting the message, and we're out there trying to enforce it. Crime composition is a real high overview look of the chart. We're pretty consistent year over year. Like I say, some of the property crime stuff is up a little bit, but we had a lot of those frauds, and it's in the media quite often, the CRA frauds and a couple of the other type of frauds will kind of skew the numbers up a little bit. We had quite a spree in break-and enters and thefts. I think there was around 30 of those, which will increase in numbers, and we were successful in arresting a couple individuals for those. Like I say, crime in the city. For a small city, we get a lot of our significant crime, Patel, Wettlaufer. And another issue, and it is crime related. Everybody looks at it as a traffic issue, but a lot of the accidents, the motor vehicle accidents, are criminal in nature, and we're developing a traffic unit that can deal with those the same as the criminal investigation. This year we had one fatal and 2 very serious other motorcycle accidents, which is kind of high for us. So, I mean, and it's consistent with what's going on around the province, but it's very concerning. Domestic related investigations, well, they're up in numbers, and the charges are down a little bit, but they're up in numbers, and that's concerning. We spend a lot of time on education, a lot of time with the community. Those investigations are very time consuming, right from the time of charge to safety planning with the victims to ensuring compliance with the offenders to make sure that they stay away and they abide by the rules. So domestics are a continuing issue. We continue to work with our partners on it, and well, hopefully someday we'll get those down. One major issue is obviously the mental health calls for service, and it's an issue across the province. You'll read about it daily in the papers. The Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police are championing, different initiatives. We're trying to see how we can actually deal with those. We deal with a lot of issues that aren't core police responsibilities. Some of these social order issues. Last year, our apprehension time decreased. Working with the hospital, we're down to 2.25 hours from 2.5 hours. And normally, what happens at an apprehension, 2 officers will have to attend the hospital. We're there until the individual is seen and formed by the doctor, or formed or released by the doctor. And it's under the Mental Health Act that's our responsibility to be there, to stay there. And we continue to work with the situation table and CMHA, and that's really very valuable. There's another collaborative initiative that we're working with that'll hopefully come to fruition through some grant money, working with the OPP and CMHA and some other partners, but I won't say much more on that. But our numbers, our incidents actually rose about 40% over last year. And in the raw numbers, we actually had 434 mental health calls for service. It's over 1 a day, and 161 apprehensions. So it is a continuing issue, dealing with these folks and trying to get them into the care they need. Holding offenders accountable. It's as much about education as it is about enforcement. The stats are quite consistent year over year. Some of our numbers are a little bit down. We haven't had a designated traffic officer for various reasons, but we'll continue to work on those traffic issues. Now and along the same theme with the traffic, the major issue that I have concerns with our personal injuries were down, which is good, but the fatals are what's concerning to me. The 1 fatal and 2 that are very near fatals. We don't have that many in action in the city, so we'll be doing much more education come springtime with the texting, paying attention, distracted driving, and motorcycle safety. I mean, people have to watch out for the bikes. Self-reported accidents, they're 7% more, and a lot of those are done through the Collision Reporting Center. And other than that, the numbers are fairly consistent. Our operational budget development, and I spoke on it last year, it's inclusive, fully transparent. The budget committee consists of 2 members, Member Shapton and Member Nancy O'Grady, and then Chair Silverthorne, as virtue of the chair, sits on it as well. What we did 2 years ago is we kind of stepped off the island, so to speak, being the police station downtown, and came to the City Hall and tapped in on the experts, the resident experts with the Director of Administrative Services, the Chief Administration Officer, and the City Clerk, and got a lot of help on to how to craft the budget properly to get us into some projections, because there were very few long-term projections. So we're very satisfied with the projection schedule we have. We're working towards it, and I think this budget shows that we're starting to reap some of those benefits. The budget's prepared. I draft it. We take it to the board. The committee and I take it to the board. Once the board passes it, then it comes here before council. Reserves, and as I mentioned, the reserves and the replacement schedule has been invaluable for us. It can actually get us on a proper scale so we're replacing vehicles at the right time, the equipment at the right time. We don't have to replace 50 Glocks at once, as opposed to putting so many a year and being able to afford it that way. Some of the major issues that we had were sick leave reserve, the fleet, information technology, and capital projects were in difficulty. So we contribute a fair bit of the operating budget towards the reserves. We've adopted the philosophy to eliminate leasing in line with what the city does. We're buying our stuff. We're dealing with cooperatives, the police cooperative and other cooperatives, to get the best bang. The furnishings we did for the new addition all come from the Board of Education cooperative. So we're tapping into some of those and actually saving a lot of money. Last year, however, we did, and it was very impactful last year, we realized that we had missed a couple of significant areas in the reserve budget, being a legal reserve and insurance loss reserves. I mean, they're difficult areas because of the civil suits. We have zero control over those suits. The property, the personal injury ones are very expensive. We have to litigate them, and as much as we try to get some cost recovery on the frivolous ones, it's not usually realized. Then monitoring budget, we monitor it very regularly. We get the monthly statements from Patrice. They're taken to the board. We go through them at each board meeting and go through all the ledgers and see if there's any inconsistencies or any concerns, and they're presented to the board and approved at the regular meetings. 2017 budget results. The budget was realized. There was a zero deficit, and if there are any surpluses, will be directed to some of the underfunded reserves. Now, getting on to the 2018 budget. Projected operational expenditures is $15,766,000. Projected revenues $1,704,000, and the net police budget is $14,062,252. The total 2018 operational budget is $14,062,252, which is a 3.96% increase. So it's a net difference of $536,064 over 2017. 2017 we're at 4.99, 2016 we're at 4.99, 2015 we're at 3.99. So we're starting to work as we're getting some of those projections and some of those capital assets built back up, starting to work our way back down. It is interesting, the collective agreement and most of the reserve projections eat up most of that 3.96 increase. Police operational budget components. We have very little discretionary spending. The majority of it is the wages, benefits component for the salaries. Even in the 19% of discretionary spending we have to buy fleet. We have to do our fleet and equipment out of that, as well as the facility. So that eats up an awful lot. So there's very little in way of real discretionary spending in the budget. Looking at the tax component, the owner of an average home valued at $231,400 will pay $575.05 on their annual tax bill for policing. That equates to $47.92 a month for an average household for locally controlled municipal policing. Now, for me, it's easier to look at this slide. It puts it more into perspective because the number kind of scares you. But when you look at the 2017 annual resident tax component, it was $573.22. This year is $575.05. So it's a difference of $1.83 annually or 15 cents a month increase in the cost of policing to the tax bill. These are the slides I really do like. I enjoy these slides. They really validate some of our collective efforts in what we're trying to do as a police service in the city. They're from the business plan, the 2016-2018 business plan. The survey was done in June of 2016, and it shows a great increase in support there of 15% from the business community when they were queried on how satisfied are you with the quality of policing provided by the Woodstock Police Service. We're extremely happy with that, and we're very happy with the citizens for the residential survey. The increase of 5%, with 325 residents were queried, again with the same question, how satisfied are you with the quality? So the 5% there, that's great. We're very happy with that. Obviously, we have a lot more interactions with citizens and residents on a more constant basis in residential areas and public areas as we do in the business side of things. So I think we're doing pretty good at 79%. Our commitment since 1862, which is really 156, going in 156 years, the city has put forward a policing model specific to the needs of the community. We believe we're efficient, we believe we're effective, we believe we're community oriented, and we're totally dedicated to the city. We have the ability to adapt and change our service level to the needs of the community through the governance of our local services board. We are fully committed to protecting our community in partnership with our cities, with our citizens, and ensuring that Woodstock remains a safe place for citizens. And I went on this slide again last year, and I'll do it again. Because people do look at the cost of policing and just think it's policing, but it's more than that. It really is truly the cost of public safety. I mean, it's truly economics and community safety. We're the default of the component in the safety chain. When there's issues and funding level issues or cuts to other components and social agencies, it basically falls back on us. We're there. We're kind of the gatekeepers. We have to deal with those issues. We deal with a lot of social disorder issues that really aren't part of our core policing responsibilities. But we are the people that have to go deal with it. We deal very well with our partners. Our community partners and social agencies are amazing. They're extremely dedicated and contribute to the partnership. But quite often we're there and having to deal with a lot of those issues. Like a lot of services, we're looking at efficiencies and how can we do better with our community partners, how can we do better internally. We did a service review last year that we're just starting to reap some of the recommendations and make some changes in the organization and change some positions around. But when people talk of the cost of policing, it's more than just going out and arresting people. It's dealing with the needy, it's dealing with the homeless, it's dealing with the addictions and whatnot. And there we are. It's our future, it's our community, it's your police service. I mean, it shows amazing dedication for Constable Thomas Black, who sacrificed his life on October 17th, 1962 in the line of duty. You got the auxiliary, we got the police academy is going to start up again in another month or two. We're taking candidates and applications right now. We're very thankful to the city for our addition there. You can see the addition. And I do guarantee an open house is coming soon. We'll get that as soon as we get her fixed up. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the chief. Thank you for your presentation. It's always very interesting, and I learn lots from it and what's happening in our municipality. I just wonder one question. Do you foresee a lot of expenses with the legalization of marijuana?
You know, there's going to be expenses. We just don't know what. We don't know what the legislation is actually going to look like, but there's got to be expenses. Even the training itself, if we have to send the drug recognition officers down, they go down to the States, it's for a couple of weeks, and they have to do so many tests a year to be requalified. There's the field of sobriety testing that has to be done. There's a lot of issues with it. I don't know how we're going to deal with it, because it's not as quantitative like with alcohol, where you can go and you blow into the machine, it gives you what the level is, the law says over this level is this. it's so subjective, and a lot of the literature I've read it's concerning in my mind, is the subjectiveness of some of the tests. So yeah, there's going to be significant expenses to us to get people trained to deal with the court processes, because I'm sure they're going to demand a lot more. You're going to engage in court a lot more because people are going to probably challenge it, and what other equipment is going to be required, we don't know.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to the Chief, is that my biggest concern, of course, with all policing is that new legalization. Any of those expenses forecasted in what you've had already, or those are going to be a kind of surprise to us all?
I think they'll be a surprise to us all. And, I've talked to the chiefs around and the other jurisdictions, and we just don't know what the numbers are, because we don't know what exactly it's going to look like and how it's actually going to unfold. I mean, the chief of Ottawa was recently in the paper saying, we don't know, we can't give you the numbers. So we'll have to absorb it, and we'll have to work with it and learn how to deal with it. But I just see it riddled with problems myself.
Okay, and just more of a shout out to all your auxiliary members. That's phenomenal, all the hours they put in, so thank you.
Yeah, they really do.
Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Chief Renton. First of all, thank you for the presentation, Chief. But more importantly, and again, more of a comment, is through all of the changes and all the difficulties that we've continued to see over the past years with major crime cases, unfortunately being in our community, I want to thank you and your team, more importantly, for keeping community policing at the forefront. And there's a lot of other models that have come to view over the last few years. And here in Woodstock, I love that the focus is and still remains on community policing. And there's nothing better when you drive downtown and you can see your officers, whether out walking the beat or just driving down, but they know the people in our community. That, to me, is exactly what an effective police force should be doing. And unfortunately, we've been stuck with some doozies, if I can call it that, but I'm hoping for a lighter load in the next few years. But I thank you for your leadership, and of course to Deputy Sweezy and Inspector Hess for all of their dedication as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next delegation is Bruce Gorman, the CEO of the Woodstock Public Library, and joined also by Sandra Carnegie, the Chair of the Woodstock Public Library Board. Again, 2018 budget presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship, councillors and members of the public. As you know, I'm Sandra Carnegie, and I'm the current chair of the Woodstock Public Library Board. With us tonight, we have Tony Pahowicz, also a board member, Chris Landry, also a board member, and we have regrets from Ethel Boyd, Brenda Turnbull, and our newest appointee, and thank you very much for this appointment, Rebecca Farrell. Rounding out our board table are councillors Tate and Louder. Busy year for the board in 2017, and Bruce will give you some highlights from the library's perspective. But from the board perspective, as you know, last year we came and indicated that we were going to engage in a strategic planning process. We have engaged in that and are continuing to do so. You may have come in contact with the Woodstock Public Library's surveys, or some of the many focus groups that we held in order to gauge community interests, community desires, what the community wanted to see from the service of the library. So we are in the process of reviewing that information and formulating a plan to be able to provide the services that the community wants to see, and to determine what kind of facilities we need in order to be able to do so. Bruce will all be able to tell you about some of the programs that we have, but one of them that you may have seen that's new to us and that seems to be relatively popular is the pub trivia night that we do in partnership with the Upper Thames Brewing Company. This is a great program that the library runs in the brewery, and we're able to then reach perhaps non-traditional users of the library that may not otherwise come in a different kind of a setting, and that's been really successful. So the board is looking forward to our year ahead, but I'm going to hand it over to Bruce to give you many more of the details and to present our proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Worship, Council, happy to be here. Let's see if I can get my presentation first of all. use the clicker. What did I do, Jim? Oh, slideshow. Here we go. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, we're all good. I used to be a technology guy, who knew? Okay, so as long as my clicker works here. Okay, well, thank you very much. As I said, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Sandra. Most of my board is here tonight, showing the dedication of a hardworking group of volunteers. And for me, it's so important to have that group of people here who care about the library and who, you know, are supportive of the things that the staff want to do. So, and it's very comforting to me too. So, thank you to all my board. It's really great that you're here. Sandra mentioned our board members, including our new one, Rebecca Farrell. So I'm going to talk about some of the KPIs for 2017, our key performance indicators. I'll give you some highlights of 2017, talk a little bit about looking ahead to 2018, and then we'll talk about the small budget request I'm looking for 2018. The library story is just such a good story, and it's just exemplified so much in this city. And I've been in the library business a long time. This is a city of 41,000 people, and as you see on the screen there, this year we increased our visitation by 4%, or 22,000 additional visits to this public library. In a city of that size, that is impressive. That would be impressive in many libraries around this country. You can see we're benchmarked in Ontario with other libraries in the population of 30 to 50 individuals. Most of them are 50,000, and we still, in visitations, rank #1 in in-person visits. So this library is well loved, and we do what we think is a really great job of providing the great programming and great experiences that people want. So as an example of this, March break is coming up, but previous March break, many of you would be surprised maybe that over 8,000 people came to take part in the activities at Woodstock Public Library. One of the greatest things about the public library is that we are free. Anybody can come into our doors and take advantage of the great programming or do whatever they want to do for free. Comic-Con, the July 31st event, we had one of our largest days, people in the building, 1,863 people just on that one day. Activities like the green screen you can see on there. But these are, you know, I mean, you could break that number down, 1,800 people in a city of our size, that 1 in 20-ish of the population landed at the Woodstock Public Library on that particular day. In the summer, probably not 41,000 people in the city in the summer either, so maybe even bigger numbers. But those are really big, important numbers and showcase how important your public library is. Each day when I come to work, there's 10, 20 people sometimes just waiting to get in the building for us to open as we open at 10 o'clock. So social media, we haven't spent as much energy, you know, as I arrived as we should have, but we are now. So we have dedicated individual social media, and you can see the big numbers we're putting up in the past year from 2016 to 2017. Increase of 37%, and this is just the beginning. Libraries have a really great relationship with social media and a lot of information that people are looking to share and be part of. So this number is going to grow by great deals in the years to come, but I'm really happy too. So as I arrived, we trended down a little bit in new registrations, but we've reversed that trend in 2017. New registrations up by 6%. So over 100 additional registrations in 2017, which we are really proud of as well. And we took a few extra initiatives to try and bump those numbers up, and they definitely played out. So I won't bore you with the science of our profession, but obviously a key indicator is circulation. And I stood in front of you this time last year and talked about a decline of 8% that we saw in circulation. And we undertook a collection analysis. Again, I won't get into the details of that. The reality is you make a collection more agile, it's used it's used in a greater capacity. So we've stemmed the decline from a decline of 8% to only a decline of 1.8%. So that's probably one of the numbers that I'm happiest about in the 2017 year. Aside from that, both per cap and in circulation in this population category of there's 11 other libraries in Ontario that are in this category. We blow the doors off everybody for both per capita circulation and even circulation amongst libraries that are, 45, 46, 47,000 people. So again, punching above our weight there, but we're really excited about that as well. So one of the big trends, obviously, in libraries is digital collections, right? Digital collections are new and they're growing. Print collection will always be there. People always ask me that, is it going to go away? No, it'll never go away. People will always want their print books. But this collection is going up. So e-books, e-magazines, e-music, e-audiobooks. And even this year we're having e-videos. I'll talk a little bit more later, but now, you can stream videos. So people can, one of our board members actually from halfway around the world takes her device, logs in, grabs the latest movie, music, video, or whatever she likes. So it really opens up the world. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, though. So we do children's programming really, really well. We've done it really well for a long time. So we didn't spend our time focusing on children's programming this year, and that didn't impact our numbers whatsoever. We did spend a little more time outreach, so daycares and schools. We upped our programming there, and that showed great results from the young children, as you can see that young lady there. So I've talked a lot about teens since landing in this city and the important role that libraries play. They all come to us anyway. They're all there. So we're going to do a lot of things, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but we did increase our programming for teens. Things that teens like, I'll show you a few of those things in a little bit, but we've increased that by 50%, and we've seen a lot more teens come in our building and us engaging with teens in a more interesting and unique way. So we did want to spend some energy this year on adult programming. Like I said, children's programming, we got that down. So we increased our programs for adult learning, our community outreach for adult programming up by a lot, by 70% or so, and the immediate result of that was that an increase in attendance of almost 40% from adult programming throughout the year, which is also a big, fabulous number for us. So you wouldn't necessarily think that you'd find us in a bar, right? Sandra mentioned it. A lot of people wouldn't say that. You'd find a library in a bar, but here we are. We're at Upper Thames Brewery, right? We partnered with Upper Thames. We bring more people into that spot at a time than any other entity does. They said at one time, well, Yuck Yuck sometimes comes close to us, but we bring more people in. So 100 plus people every time. In fact, I bet you we could get 130, 140 in there, but people know it's so crowded now that some of them aren't coming. They also show up so early, so they sit and they patronize the establishment and have some fun and drink alcohol, and then have a fun trivia night with the library. We couldn't be more excited about these types of partnerships, and as Sandra mentioned, being in places where people don't expect us to be and creating new relationships with people. You can see Carl, his comment there, you added incredible value to our customer experience and our business. We love your outside of the box thinking, and we love our outside of the box thinking too, and this is a good example. So I've also talked quite a bit about mental health and the important role that libraries play. So we partner with Canadian Mental Health Association, right, through their Oxford Self-Help Partnership. Libraries are a non-stigmatized place. Anybody can come into a library and do whatever they want, and no one's the wiser, and that's a pretty valuable proposition. A lot of other places are stigmatized, as they use the word. So we have a booth set up on the second floor of our library every Wednesday afternoon, And, you know, I'm up there talking to the people manning the booth from Oxford Self-Help, and on a regular basis, someone is coming up and asking questions. Who knows what they're asking, but they're asking questions and they're doing it in a place where they feel comfortable, and that is really important to us. And, you know, Mike McMahon, his comments there, your immediate recognition that the library space can also be unique meeting spaces is just awesome, and he can't wait to continue this partnership with us, and he said he would have been pleased to be here to show his support tonight, but the weather was too yucky, and it's a long night for council too. Not to mention we were on What's on Woodstock, right? So we captured the month of February to be on What's on Woodstock, and that's great too. I've asked Brad if we could be on every month. I haven't heard back from him yet, but maybe he'll let us. So earlier this year, this caught some news media. I was up with our MPP from Oxford, Ernie Hardiman, as our building, the Woodstock Public Library, was recognized for its architecture by the Ontario Architecture Association. So MPPs from across Ontario, they nominated buildings. Ernie nominated ours. So me and Ernie had dinner together and got to talk with other people in the architecture community about our great building. It was a nice event, a nice day, and it was nice to have Woodstock at Queen's Park on people's minds. Happy about that. It was a fun day. And thanks to Ernie, too, for that. That was great. So we're in these new places, right? We hosted Business After 5 in June, just talked about Upper Thames. Since Upper Thames, I've had other businesses in the community contact me about having discussions on possible partnerships. It's important that we're part of the business community, and this was a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit about what we do and mingle with some of the important businesses here in the city. So last year, council gave me some capital money to redo the workspace for my staff. There's lots of science behind having a healthy, nicely laid out workspace, how that translates into higher productive employees. So we did get that money. Our project is underway now. I need my office back soon, or I may go a little bit. Well, I'll be okay, but I'm not used to not being in my office. So this is a preliminary look, but now we're going to have full offices for private conversations when you need it. We have a boardroom now for staff to work together and collaborate together. We added a new office for future growth. Staff are very excited. Expected to be done probably in maybe a month and a half or so, with new furniture, and you know, it's the right thing to do for staff, and it's a way for us to work better together. So thank you again for the money for that project too. I think it's well worth it. Comic-Con, I mentioned this in the opening salvo there. This was the day where 1,863 people entered the building. Spider-Man was there, and Batman. I'm not sure who that other superhero is, but whoever he is, and a lot of our staff all dressed up. It was just a really enjoyable day, and as I said, a lot of the population of the city came in and took advantage of it, all for free. You didn't pay a cent to come and enjoy this. Okay, so some operational stuff. So we ran our technology independently until I arrived, but in this day and age of cloud technology and the internet, it's not the right way to do it. So we joined what's called the Ontario Library Coalition, which is a bunch of libraries who all share our primary software tool, which is Circe Dynex Symphony. So now we're part of that collective. I met with them on numerous occasions in Toronto and made sure that we'd feel comfortable, and we do. They now support all of our networks, and we direct our personal human resource to public good, less to managing servers, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see, beginning this year, 2018, that's an $18,000 annualized savings for the library. So I'll put that to public use for sure. Digital collections, I've talked about that earlier. Hoopla is an example, and Cloud Library are two new digital collections that we added. Now it's the experience you can have, in particular with an iPad, is really getting any type of information you want, any type of reading material you want, music, all in the comfort of your hand. If you want to come in and get the book, we have a lot of books, obviously, as well. But it's a new opportunity for people. Mobile printing, so come in with your iPad or iPhone or whatever, and you can attach to our network and mobily print whatever you want, which is certainly very convenient for a lot of people. We updated our website. We added a new single search. In my library world, it's a one search rather than often in past you'd have drop-down windows. Do you want to search website? Do you want to search catalog? Do you want to search databases? Now it's a kind of a single search and you get a rich experience back. So we're excited about that. And one of my managers and I am particularly excited about some of the analytic tools. So we have a lot of data in our Cersei Dynex Horizon database. So Blue Cloud Analytics allows us to really make great business decisions based on the data we have in a timely fashion, be agile. And Collection HQ helps us manage our collection. It kind of is a living, breathing way to look at the collection and see where there's gaps, where you may have too much, where you need more of this or less of that. So these are tools that we brought online in 2017 that we're looking forward to taking advantage of and making better decisions. So all of this new digital infrastructure we've put in place, including Hoopla and Cloud Library, which I mentioned, in our standard overdrive, and the music service Freegal, and magazine service from RB Digital, and kids digital services from Tumble Books. That now means we present to the population of Woodstock over 1 million items in our collection for them to take advantage of whenever we want. And I think that's fabulous. I think people have, people want information in different ways now, and so we have such a vast amount of information online that they can get. I think it's again, a big highlight for 2017. So Sandra mentioned that we undertook our strategic planning process in 2017, continue to work on that. We'll be excited to present that sometime in 2018. But we branded our public consultation campaign, Make Us Your WPL. Had that throughout the summer, focus group meetings, public sessions, and online surveys. So we had overall 450 responses. So I'll just put that in minor perspective. So my colleagues at Halifax Public Libraries were doing the same process at the same time, and they received 1,500 responses. And if you normalize that for population of our two cities, we outbeat them by 3 to 1. So we had that much higher of a response rate in the city of Woodstock, which was fabulous. And the responses were rich and telling, and you'll see the responses played out as we launch our strategic plan later this year. So it's all about the author at the IFOA. We had a okay IFOA 2 years ago, but we put some pressure on our partners in Toronto about providing some really good authors. And they did. And we had over 150 people that evening. We had a really great reception afterwards, and you can see wine and cheese was served, and fun was had by all. Mary's still here. Mary, well, I wasn't making that. No. Mary, so Mary hosted the dinner with the authors beforehand. See, segue away. She hosted us with the author event beforehand, and so there was a little bit of a malfunction with the caterer, so Mary just stepped right up there and took my authors on a tour of the art gallery. So thank you, obviously, to Mary for that as a good partner and a good friend of the libraries as well. But it was a very successful and enjoyable event. Fun time had by all, and they're already calling us again to do it again, because I'm pretty sure we're their most successful city of the 11 cities that they do each year. So some of the technology highlights, we have a new service now, although Book a Librarian can be for anything, and it is for local history. A lot of it is related to technology. Technology is interesting for adults. A lot of adults feel very uncomfortable or feel scared about learning technology in an environment with other people. They learn in a much more defined way when they're one-on-one. So you can come and book any one of our librarians for half an hour on any topic you like, including obviously technology. We have all the courses for the latest technology on iPads and eBooks. Computer Skills Club is kind of a start from I know nothing together for people who do like to learn in a group environment. And it takes you through a series of 5 or 6 courses from basic skills to learning how to do Word. So after a month or so, you have some pretty good skills on how to navigate. And again, you know, I say this all the time when I talk about technology. One could pay if one wanted to learn technology, or one could come to the library and learn about it for free. And that's what a lot of people do. So all these latest technology, like Ozbots and all the latest technologies that the kids are playing with now, we're right there. So STEAM, I've talked about STEAM as well, the notion of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. It's called a few different things. But it's a philosophy that teachers and that the educational community has adopted to prepare young people for future jobs that will require technology and science. So we are ahead of that game. A lot of the programming we do in particular is developed based on STEAM. So we have coding programs and maker labs and all that. But it really is a place where young children can start and learn about technology that's going to advance them in their lives and help them when they enter school programs or assist them as they are in school programs. So just some of the program highlights for children's programming this year. So we had after-school meetups. We had Minecraft, I mentioned, summer camps in partnership with the Recreation Department. Brian's not here, but him and Emma worked with us to create good summer programming where some of the students would come over and spend part of their time at the library. I mentioned STEAM, and we hosted Family Literacy Day for the first time this year, which was a great success for us. Teen programs, I mentioned that, so we are ramping up our teen programming by 47% in the previous slide. Things like escape rooms, teen drop-ins, movie nights, gamings, virtual reality. We are launching our virtual reality. I think it's actually tomorrow, our programming. So virtual reality has a lot of benefits for a lot of people, as well as a lot of people might not necessarily be able to come and take advantage of virtual reality because there's a cost to it. So I was watching the news tonight. They also talked about virtual reality and older adults and how it helps stimulate their mental capacities and combat against depression and things. So there's lots of future for us there. We presented actually at the Ontario Library Association conference in January, which is the first time Woodstock Public Library has ever done that on this topic. So we had a room full, standing room only, and a lot of people very interested in what we're doing. And we've set up our program room in the way that really takes full advantage of it. And I'm going to show you a quick little video for that in a second. Adult programs, again, we spent quite a bit of energy on adult programs. Travelog is always very popular. Mind, Body, and Soul, so, scents and aromatherapy and those types of things. We had that program a couple of weeks ago, and I believe they told me there was 25, 30 people in our first program there. Tabletop gaming, writer's circle, a place where writers can get together and critique and support and assist each other. And then we have author visits throughout the year. So we also care about the environment that we're in. And in 2017, we began our retrofit to LED light bulbs through the granting process. So we get rebates from this. And we will begin our savings in this year of $11,000. We're not done yet, but so I'll realize more savings for next year, but right now we've realized this amount of savings, and it's the right thing to do. And I know the city cares about energy efficiency and energy savings, and a lot of the buildings through Craig Wallace have undertaken this. So this wasn't in this year. I know David's a big fan of Blue W, right? He called me out on Blue W, how I'm the only Blue W guy in the city at the time, right? It was on their website. We didn't do this in 2017, but here in 2017, up until then, we've saved 50,000 bottles of water. So the municipal water program, Blue W, is free municipal water, and a lot of people take advantage of it in our library, in particular in the summer. We're actually even a cooling center in the summer. So a quick look to 2018, look ahead for our new strategic plan. So I'm really looking forward to that, to allow us to plan for the future, plan future years out, and get a good sense of what the community wants from us and how we're going to undertake that. I talked to you last year. We did wait for the expansion feasibility study until we do have the strategic plan, which was the right decision. So once we have that, we'll be launching this expansion feasibility plan. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing that the library needs is additional space, and it would be remarkably utilized. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the year. Okay, so I'm asking for a bit of money this year, not much. Lynda.com, it comes from LinkedIn, and it's online training. So this is a docket of 6,000 courses in business, technology, creative skills taught by educational experts. I went in and tried some of the courses. They're well done. So for free in your library, come, and maybe you want to be a digital marketer or learn some management skills or be a web developer. So now you can come to the library for free and get all these skills and maybe take your career to the next level. And we think that's really important. A few other examples of that: digital illustrator, IT security specialist, online on your time for free through the library. If you want to do it in your home, that's fine too. You can still use us for that. So this is $8,250, and that's one of the asks in the 2018 budget that I'm requesting. Okay, teen space. I've talked about our important role for teens. So this is capital money that we did receive for 2018. Thanks to the city for that, for a new teen space in the library. So that's overlooking the courtyard there. We're going to take a look at how we're going to actualize this plan and work it later this year. But we think this is really, really important. I don't have great space for teens. Teens are dying to be engaged. They spend a lot of time with me. I'm developing new pathways with the teens too. So we think this is going to be a huge opportunity, collaborative place for them to sit and hang out, place for them to do gaming, place for them to just chill and hang out, and the types of furniture that they want. So we are really looking forward to this project later in 2018. Okay, so Jim, you said it was going to do it, Jim. Where's Jim?
Actually, we're going to have to go through the whole thing again. Can you hit video mute? Can you hit video mute?
Can you do it? Is that okay? Yep.
Yeah, it'll be a couple minutes.
Then no, don't bother.
Okay,
That's too
fine.
bad. Why did it didn't work?
Because she didn't say yes when I said yes.
I didn't say yes when I was supposed to say yes. So it's Capital One commercial. So and it's a preface to the next ask, and it's Capital One commercial about Jennifer Garner. You probably see it in the media, and she's whispering in a library, and everybody is telling her to shush. Right? So here we are in January 2018. I've done countless presentations, and I often use this type of example and find a more recent portrayal of a library with a stereotypical library being shushed, right? So this commercial will be seen by millions and millions of people across the United States and Canada, and it's still what I am combating in a public library every day. So that said, I'm asking for $10,000, or no, I'm asking actually, so this is $30,000 coming from my consultant reserve, so there's no budget to budget impact, it's from my reserve. But it's really to develop a marketing strategy. A lot of people think it's just all about the marketing plan, but it isn't. It's creating a strategy first. So we want to create a great marketing strategy that will lead to a marketing plan and devise our strategy forward. It's a really important part that libraries just really don't do a great job of telling our stories, and we want to really focus on that, and the results, you'll see the results for sure. So last year we received a $10,000 donation from some anonymous donors who had an important impact in the library through our smart board. I continued my conversations with them, and they've stepped up again and given another great donation to the library. And one of the things that we're going to do is update our Wi-Fi network. So it's kind of basically legacy. It's been around too long. It can't provide some of the information, and it's kind of on the cusp of not being at the speeds that we need for all these new digital services that we're offering. So we'll be outfitting the building and surrounding area too. So I'll hopefully get my signal maybe out on a Dundas Street. So we'll extend our reach for people who are looking for free, safe Wi-Fi. Okay, is this going to work, Jim? Okay. Okay, so just watch this for a second. This is VR. This is one of my staff members. Oh, there's no sound? Okay.
Oh, can you see it on the screen? Yes. Oh my god. This looks real. Okay, now what? Oh, I have to get this thing.
Can you touch any of the presents?
That's what I think.
You can send presents
out.
Okay.
Marina, you have to.
So it really shows how real VR really is. So like I said, our programming launches tomorrow. We have some defined programs that people can come and join us in. But it's a really unique experience, and I even mentioned some of the other benefits that can have to different populations as well. So certainly feel free to come over. Maybe we'll have a session with counselors on VR, right? And I'll come over. As long as you don't mind that we tape you and then show, right? Right? No? Oops. Okay, let me get on here. Okay, so let's talk some numbers then as I come to the conclusion of my presentation. So revenue is really because we brought money over last year from our consultant services accounts and carried some over. And as well, I've chosen to draw down one of our budget lines, which is non-resident fees, which we just are not achieving. So I just want to have a more realistic number. And I mentioned that primarily the numbers are related to the consultant fees. So we are continuing with our expansion feasibility study this year and our strategic plan and pay equity review. The numbers also include the $30,000 that I'm talking about for the marketing strategy. So you can see that number. Last year we brought, let's start at the top then, advertising $11,450. I want to add $10,000. So I want to add $10,000 actually to the marketing budget, not the same as the $30,000 for the marketing strategy, but we easily eclipse the $11,000 that we have in marketing in Heartbeat, and marketing is really important. So that's what I'm looking for, that particular increase. The second increase, the consultant services, our previous year was $79,500, $67,055 was carried over, and that's where the additional $30,000 is to bring it to $97,055 for the year. And I mentioned also about lynda.com, which we'd like to implement this new online training program, and that's the additional $82.50. So the big number then, net expenditures, we are only looking for a 2.9% increase. We think that's really effective use of public dollar and gives a great return on investment. And we think the library just gives a remarkable return on investment. It's well used. I've shown you some pretty big numbers that are impressive in the city, across the province, and even across the country. So we really appreciate all of your support and look forward to assisting us for our 2018 budget. And on that note, I will stop talking and answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Shapton?
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question, then a comment through to Bruce. You mentioned a lot about the teen space and about 47, I think you said 47% up in programming. Great that the programming is up, but are you seeing the attendance from the teens in these programs?
Yeah, so it's ramping up. I will say it's ramping up. So when you introduce these new programs, so we have gaming nights on Friday nights, so the word is getting out, and people are, our numbers are definitely ramping up, right? But people are not used to having teen programming, and it takes a little bit of time to get it up, bring it up.
If I can just continue on, Your Worship. The other last comment is I hope that you never change your style when you come to council, because it's a breath of fresh air around this horseshoe to see somebody talk so candidly. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too actually had the exact same question about the youth. I was curious what kind of numbers you've been seeing there. But I will tell you, within my own daughters, I mean, there's talk of amongst friends and everything, so you're actually making a huge difference. And really just want to say keep it up. I too love what you're bringing and got some great ideas.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, the Mayor, to Bruce. And I sit on your board, and it's a great board. I know I haven't been there for the last few meetings, but budget and a few other things have taken place. But I just want to thank you for your presentation, and it's always great to have you come. And congratulations to you and your staff for the growing participation and visits to the gallery and to the art gallery, or I mean to the library.
And the art gallery too. The art gallery's numbers are up too, so it's all good all around.
Yeah,
culture, culture, culture.
Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of correspondence. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council supports the request from the Township of East Shore Tavistock for the Province of Ontario to also consider other viable options to improve transportation in the southwestern Ontario beyond high-speed rail, and the concerns of rural Ontario be considered in the final decision, and I'll speak to it later.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Accioni. Councillor Lauder.
The reason I have brought this request for acceptance of their resolution is I feel that we should be supporting EZT, and also Zor Township is very involved in this. There's one of the routes that they're talking about would go divide my own family's farms, and I know what that can have, problems that can be to the farming community. And so I think this is really important, and I hope that there's some other ways that they can come up with some kind of a rail if this is what they need, but not to affect the farmlands in our community. We have great farming agriculture, and hopefully that won't be disturbed. So this is why I have thought that we should be supporting EZT in their request. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is administrative services, and we have the reserve and reserve funds and additional capital projects report. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council refer the report regarding reserve and reserve funds and additional capital projects to the 2018 Revenue Fund budget for consideration.
Thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Petter. Discussion. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And our next item is development charges. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council received the preliminary draft development charge study result as presented for information and instruct staff to proceed in drafting a development charges background study report and associated DC bylaw. And further, that City Council instructs staff to advertise and hold a public meeting to receive public comments on the draft development charges background study. And further, that City Council instructs staff to finalize the development charges background study and report back to Council for approval and passage of the bylaw.
Councillor Lauder. Discussion. Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Next item is the residential landlord registry. Councillor Shapton.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the report regarding a residential landlord registry as information.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Petter. Discussion. Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Next item is the sale of city-owned industrial land. And we'll go with Councillor Talbot.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement of purchase and sale with DNK Development Corp. to sell 1.26 acres in the Bisham Business Park for $119,577, and that the necessary bylaw be read.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Next item, sale of land. Councillor Petter.
I move that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement of purchase and sale with DNK Development Corp. for 3 acres of land in the Bisham Business Park at a price of $259,122, and that the necessary bylaw be read.
Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And no notices of motion, no new business. Bylaws. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that following bylaws be given first and second reading. 9193-18, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended ZN 8-17-04 Bisham Park Drive. 9194-18, a bylaw to provide for the sale of certain lands owned by the Corporation of the City of Woodstock to DNK Development Corp. And 9195-18, a bylaw to provide for the sale of certain lands owned by the Corporation of the City of Woodstock to DNK Development Corp.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the following bylaws be given third and final reading. 9193-18 to 9195-18 inclusive.
The carries. And tonight we will start with Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. Next week, two special events for International Women's Day. First one on Monday evening put on by Owen, and the second one on Wednesday evening put on by the Zonta group. I hope that women and men take the opportunity to go out and participate. And my only comment about tonight's weather is in like a lion, let's hope out like a lamb.
Thank you. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had one thing tonight. Last Thursday, the city lost an incredible man, Danny Sutherland, also lovingly known as Sudsy in our community, who did so much, and some may remember he was recently added to the Woodstock Wall of Fame at the end of October in 2017. Sudsy played a role in my life that I will certainly appreciate, as he did so many. He did it with such grace, and although Sudsy was a little shorter in stature, and he would appreciate that joke, he carried a huge presence. So to Sudsy's family, certainly send out our condolences, and to the city, his legacy will live on through specifically the Woodstock Old Timers Baseball League that he started 30 years ago and is still thriving in our community. The other thing I wanted to mention is March break's coming up, so kids will be out and about. Just make sure if you're on the streets, you're watching for them. I'm hoping that weather is going to greatly improve. And if you are traveling, please be safe and enjoy your break. I received a couple of phone calls in the last few weeks just regarding the broadcast that has been on Rogers or not. There's been a cutback to local content, and people want to know why both meetings aren't being broadcast. For those that struggle to believe that there's a great following for this, there really is. So some people missed it, and I want to give everyone an update that we are live streaming the meetings now. So they're accessible through the city website and also through YouTube, which also gives us the opportunity to reach everyone in our community and not those just that have Rogers. So a great update, a great addition. And certainly appreciate the work that Rogers has done, but just due to some cutbacks, all the meetings will be broadcast live streamed. So a great update to our community. Other than that, have a great break, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.
Thank you. Councillor Petter.
Just a couple of quick things. I just want to congratulate the Woodstock Navy vets on an excellent season that they had this year. They're playoff series against Tavistock didn't quite go the way they wanted to, but they outshot them every game, and every game was within 2 goals. The goals just didn't go in on the particular series. But it didn't take away from a great year they had, and I'm sure they'll pick right up next year. The second thing is this Sunday at the Cowan Park is the Woodstock Rec and Leisure Fair. The Woodstock Rec Advisory Committee works on this all year long. It's a great way to get out and see what's available as far as sports, leisure activities, clubs, you name it. There are, I forget now how many exhibits are going to be there. Councillor Shafton, help me. You don't know. We'll say over 1,000, which is absolutely wrong, but regardless, it'll be a packed house, and there'll be a ton of people there to check out things that they can do during the summer and all year long. Remember, it's at Cowan Park from 1 to 4. Make sure I covered everything. I think I did. It was not in the What's On magazine, which I thought it was. So I want to make sure that I get this out because it is this Sunday, 1 to 4. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. The Best You Health Expo is being held at Southgate on Monday, March 5th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's 3 key speakers. It's free admission, and there's a healthy lunch available for $5. And there's going to be 40 exhibitors there. So check it out. It's always a great event. And check out what is happening at the Library, Art Gallery, and Museum for the March break for the kids to do, or anyone that wants to check out what's happening there. And thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. For all those people that have been asking me lately, do you take your winter tires off? And no, not yet, as you can tell tonight. So unfortunate but true. My own wife, one that argued with me. Big Brothers Big Sisters Trivia Night tomorrow night. Quite excited for that. We've got a team entered, so no, we're not going to win. We are going to go have a great time because there's some pretty competitive teams. I won't try to win, but we do have fun. International Women's Day, of course, we do plan on attending Monday evening's presentation, but also wanted to let people know there are some tickets still available for the March 8th, the Zonta Last Understanding, so hopefully you can pick those up. Men and women, of course, are more than welcome. March break, it's coming before you know it. As Councillor Shafton said, please be careful, have a great time, enjoy your family. Some events are, of course, March 12th, if memory serves me correct, at the Art Gallery. 11 to 1 o'clock is a free family day, so go and enjoy yourselves and just go enjoy the family. See everybody after the break. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Tate had to leave. It's no reflection on the length of the budget presentations from the library. March break, we heard from the police tonight about statistics for crime over the past year. We've heard about being safe over March break. Well, think about your online safety as well at this point in time. I see people on social media with their countdown to their dream vacation and the luggage piled at the door. So does the friend of your friend that you don't know, and our police department hopefully doesn't have to know. So be careful about posting online when you're going to be away. Make sure you follow all of the sage advice of having your neighbors or good family friends that keep an eye on your place for you. A lot of things going on in the city. Of course, stay up to date on the city's website, the Facebook page, the What's on Woodstock magazine, and we will see you again soon. So, motion to adjourn. Councillor Shafton, seconded by Councillor Petter. All those in favor? We are adjourned.